Do you think Don was at work that day?
From what I've heard from the TBI, he was not at work.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. We know the last photo was taken of Summer by Grandma while Candace was driving towards Chalet Wells. Well, where was Don? Where was Don when the last photo was taken at 3 on June 15th, 364 days ago today? Before we get to the rest of this episode, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Like, share, leave a comment. Remember, you can also hit the thanks button if you'd like to show your appreciation. And let's get started. So it was more than 3 hours later, 3 hours after the last photo was taken, that Candace called 911. In fact, it was about 3 hours and 20 minutes later. What happened during that mysterious block of time? And again, where was Don during this time? It's never made any sense that the 3 Wells kids would have been left completely alone at home while Candace and Grandma were away. And so when Macbeth was asked about this by Chris McDonough from the interview room, Macbeth answered, "What I heard from the TBI, he was not at work," meaning Don was not at work. Now, it's interesting, at the moment McDonough asks Macbeth this question, Ellie, who's been looking down at her phone, looks straight at her son. Well, yes, it is an important question. When Macbeth is asked what he knows, he says, "I thought he was at work." He's then asked what the TBI told him, and Macbeth simply says that they weren't able to verify whether Don was at work. Don has said he was. In fact, Don has said in some places that he's got 7 alibis. I'm not sure if he's actually named them, but he's apparently said on social media he has 7 alibis. He said he was at work when he found out Summer was missing, and the first thing he did was collect his tools. Do you remember Barry Morphew had the same or a similar story? Barry Morphew was also at work when he found out Suzanne was missing. He was actually at a job site, and the first thing he did was apparently do something with his tools. Except it turned out CCTV footage from the hotel where Barry was staying in Broomfield seemed to show he was at the hotel at the time he was called about Suzanne. Now, I remember when I first investigated this case, I wondered whether Candace drove home with Grandma and Summer after the last photo. Did she go straight home or did she go somewhere else? I wondered whether something else may have happened. Did she drive somewhere else? Did Don meet her somewhere on the road? It didn't make sense to me that if something had happened to Summer, that she would drive home. But if Don was home, I think it would make sense. And it would also make sense to use the shed at the bottom of the property. I also wonder whether Don's work tools are relevant to this case, just as I've wondered whether Barry Morphew's work tools, such as the Bobcat, were relevant in that case. Remember, think about Chris Watts and his work tools and his work knowledge. Were they relevant in his case? Now, both Don and Barry worked in construction, and part of construction involved either digging up terrain or covering up freshly constructed surfaces. Don's job was a drywaller, and interestingly, he said he fired a guy the day before Summer went missing. Now, as I understand it, Don is a subcontractor and self-employed, which suggests he can choose his own hours. Another possibility is that Don was at work on the fateful Tuesday Summer disappeared, but not before she disappeared. In other words, is it possible that instead of Don arriving home from work, he actually drove to work, to a job site sometime after the last photo was taken at 15:09? Between then and when 911 was called, 3 hours went by. I think there was plenty of time to get from A to B and back again, plus a little time to spare. In this respect, one wonders if there is a similarity here to the Chris Watts case and also the Morphew case. In the midst of people disappearing, the suspect goes to work and then returns from work. But is there more to it than that? It turned out there was in the Chris Watts case. Going to work is a perfectly plausible reason for moving around, for going somewhere, when serious and suspicious things are taking place. But what if the going to work is actually a cover for something else? And why would Don be driving the expensive red Subaru to work when it's not a work vehicle? What is that all about? And I suppose this brings us to a very simple question. Does Don have an alibi between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. on June 15th, 2021? So I'm not going to take it further than that. I do want to do a 1-year anniversary live stream, a discussion with you guys. I also want to do that with Bria, someone who knows quite a lot about this case and has got quite a lot to say about it. And that'll probably be either tomorrow or the day after. So I would normally do a Van Gogh letter on Wednesday, but instead of doing that Wednesday, I'm going to be doing it today. And that'll sort of open up the schedule in order to do a live stream on this case tomorrow with Bria. So I hope you'll join us for that. For those interested in the Alec Baldwin case, I'll be putting up some additional footage of the ammunition supplier, a guy called Seth Kenny from PDQ Prop and Arm in Albuquerque. I'll be putting more footage from his police interview, and it really is interesting what he says. It'll be around about 20 minutes. And if you've watched the first one and found that interesting, you really want to watch the next one I'm going to put up. Then another thing that I'm going to be covering in the next day or so is Caitlin Armstrong. She has been on the run now for around about a month. And the case has been escalated to major case status, which means a lot more in terms of law enforcement have been made available to investigate this case. I will also obviously be covering Summer Wells, but there doesn't seem to be terribly much news. It appears that certain news publications have contacted Don in jail. He refused to respond to that, or he didn't respond to that. Candace has been approached. She hasn't responded. Grandma's been approached. She hasn't responded either. And so one wonders whether the family members are actually going to remember the 1-year anniversary. And if they do, it would be curious how they remember it and who they're going to reach out to in order to do so. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.